Welcome to the show. As you know, every once in a while, I meet someone in person, just in our community or in my travels, and I think my audience would like to hear from them. So, I met Ashley Cline just a couple of weeks ago at a women's retreat. We got to talking in the kitchen, and then about a week or two later, Ashley, I reached out and said, "Do you want to come on the show?" And you said, "I don't know about that," and I said, "It's just like talking in the kitchen."
Yes. Yeah. It was something that I woke up to a message from you, and I was kind of shocked at first and nervous and going, okay, let's do this.
Let's do this. Yes, I love that. Let's do this. You're in good hands, I promise.
Yeah.
It'll go by really fast. So let's get started. You have some congratulations are in order. You just recently graduated from nursing school. You have your RN getting ready to take the state boards, but that's quite an accomplishment. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk first. There's a couple of different topics we're going to cover. One we'll cover it in the last segment about your brilliance in the kitchen and how you cook for like months at a time in your crock pot. And I think you should teach an online course just on that. Truly, I do. But first, let's talk about your career in nursing and what led you from working as a CNA to becoming an RN. And did you know as a CNA that you were going to continue on with your education?
You know, I became a CNA when I was 18 years old, and it kind of went back to, I remember my mom asking me, I was like 14, 15 years old, and she asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I told her I was either going to be a nurse because I loved helping people, or I was going to be a contract negotiator because I could argue just about anything.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's a contrast.
Yes, yes. But I went to I went to work as a CNA, and
did someone just sneeze?
My son.
Oh, that's cute. It's perfectly fine. I just like the audience to know where the noise came from.
Yeah.
Now it'll make sense, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I worked as a CNA for about 10 years in a variety of settings, off and on. And, you know, I steered away from it for a little while, where I even traveled with the carnival for a year, worked insurance, and it was like a calling. It kept bringing me back. I wanted to be in healthcare. I loved the rapport that I got with some of the patients that I took care of. And that's where it went. And then I decided just to kind of move along in little increments. So
how little were the increments? Because we heard your little one sneezing in the background. So you have a little one. So you did this married with a young child, and there's never really a perfect time, right? So you just had to make the adjustments in your own life to make that happen.
Definitely. Yeah, it was just talking with James and being like, you know, this is what I want to do. And I think this is going to benefit our family. So I went from being a CNA to being a medical assistant, where I worked outpatient pediatrics for 5.5 years. And then I decided that was time for the next step. And while I was working pediatrics was when our little one was born. And then it was just while I was on my maternity leave, I started taking one class at a time to finish up prerequisites to go back to nursing school.
And when you started nursing school, I say this because there's a lot of people who I've talked to or even had on the show where when there's challenges that come up, and I'm sure there were many, how did you keep going forward with the dream you had in mind for yourself, with the career path that you had in mind for yourself?
You know, I will say that after my first acceptance into nursing school, I did step out. There were family situations that happened, and I stepped out to also help my mom at her store. And then it was just like in me some calling that this is what I want to do. This was my goal. This was my plan. This would give me financial security for myself and my family, especially the little one. And I went back for it.
You went back. I work a lot in patient advocacy, and I have for about 26 years. It started being a patient for myself, and it's led to it's part of what I do in my career is to help people navigate their healthcare. And one of the things that I think is most critical is building that team of trust with the providers, whether it's a doctor, a nurse, whomever's in the room with you, really, in a hospital setting or a doctor's office setting. What about for you helps build trust between yourself and a patient, having worked in the field even before becoming a nurse?
I think empathy is a big part of it. When you're willing to come in, and even with a new patient, the first time you've ever met them, and you sit there and you listen to what they're saying. You don't just rush through everything, but you talk them through everything that you're going to do. That's helped me build a lot of rapport with patients. I've had patients at pediatrics that they said they only wanted me to give them their vaccines because I was able to build that rapport with them. I was able to joke with them, find some common interest that helped the situation.
Makes them comfortable, right?
Yeah, makes them comfortable. Yeah.
Let's back up just a tiny bit. When you were in your education, this is what we're going to talk about when we come back. There were things in the education process of getting your RN that you think could improve. And that's what we were talking about in the kitchen at the retreat. And so I want to take a break and I want to come back and I want to talk about those specific things that you feel like really could make a difference in some specific areas of healthcare. So let's take a break and we'll come back. We're going to finish our conversation. I'm talking with Ashley Cline. Again, congratulations, just received your RN. And we're going to talk about the changes that you hope to help make in some of the curriculum in nursing care. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back talking with Ashley Cline. Ashley has just completed her RN and will be taking her state board soon. I met her a couple of weeks ago at a retreat and we got to talking about big goals and dreams. And while finishing school was obviously one of your big goals and dreams, what you really were focused on in our conversation was making some changes to the curriculum in the future as it relates to sexual assault and the examination that happens when a person comes in for sexual assault. So thanks again for being willing to talk about your ideas. I'm sure they seem lofty, right? How does one person go about changing nursing curriculum? But it starts with conversations, right? So let's have the conversation. You said when we were talking that this part, you said sexual assault nurse examiner. There's a specific type of nurse or training that one has to go through in order to be a nurse who does this examination when someone comes in to an ER setting with sexual assault claim. My question, let's just start from the beginning. You said there's very little time spent on that in your nursing education. So let's start there.
Yeah, so we cover topics in nursing school of how the professors put it is you get a little bit of information about a whole lot of topics. And sexual assault nurse examiners, forensic nursing is one of them, where it was towards the end of our program and we had less than, I want to say 4 slides on the subject of being a sexual assault nurse examiner.
4 slides as opposed to what's the comparison to another topic that maybe had 40? Was it can you compare it to anything? What 4 slides in comparison to how many you would usually see about a different topic?
I would say, like, if you talk about respiratory conditions, there's a lot of respiratory conditions, and we would have 80 slides okay. Compared to the 4 slides of this.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted context of what you'd usually have, so go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, not a problem. And I feel like there should be more. The 4 slides, the teachers try and do their best and state this is the role that this sexual assault nurse examiner follows and what the main part of being that type of nurse is, and making sure that you're collecting evidence. However, what isn't put out there is how little of these nurses there are compared statewide or even nationwide. So when I did my research in over tens of thousands of nurses currently registered in Washington State, there was less than 300 SANE certified nurses. And in my research, it brought up an article of a patient in the Seattle area who was turned away from one hospital because that hospital did not have SANE nursing. And so
SANE is the
the sexual assault nurse examiner. Yes.
Not sane like insane, but
yeah,
the SANE acronym.
Yes. And feeling the effects of being drugged and whatnot, this patient had gone home, slept it off, traveled 8 miles to the other hospital and had the exam done. However, the prosecutor refused to prosecute because of the fact that there was a time lapse in between, and they stated that anything could have happened. So to me, with people not understanding that there's a huge need for the sexual assault nurse examiner to be properly trained and to be readily available, this leaves a huge gap for patients that may be too afraid to go or may not want to wait for hours upon hours.
Well, and the other thing is in this particular case, it would be hard enough to go to the first hospital and be turned away and then muster the courage to go yet to a second hospital. Now, is this it's called a sexual assault nurse examiner. Is this something that you as an RN could get certified in and be able to be one of the nurses? And in addition to your other duties, it's not the sole duty of that particular nurse, but it's something that you could get extra education and be certified to handle that type of thing coming into the ER, that situation?
Yes. And currently, from my research, the main hospital that does the schooling is UW in the Seattle area. It is currently in legislature right now that they are trying to get more funding for SANE nursing. I know the college over in Spokane the university over there is trying to get funding so that they can also have the program.
Is that Gonzaga University or?
I cannot remember off the top of my head right now.
I know they have a pretty extensive nursing program there that's largely full. Always full. Yeah.
I believe it's them, but I don't want to
say
quote
for
me
sure
on that right now.
Right. Not quoted.
Yeah.
So then when a man or woman comes in to report or, have the exam done, it's also important that it's done correctly, because in your research, you found cases that weren't won because there were missteps. It's not a half an hour procedure. You said it could take hours.
Yeah.
When done properly.
Yeah. When done properly, the procedure should take like an estimate of 2 to 5 hours, just to be meticulous in all of your steps and make sure that you're collecting everything and, going down that checklist and getting all the pictures and all the evidence needed. There have been studies and reports that people who are not properly trained in it will take 30 minutes to an hour, and steps are missed, or not all the evidence is collected properly, and so that can gum things up in a court battle too.
When I was reading in preparation for our conversation, I was reading about both the defense is looking for those errors.
Yes.
That's the easiest way. And that's why a prosecution team might not even accept the case, because if they know out of the gate they can't win it, right? Then they're not even going to, if they don't have enough evidence to start with, or like you said, if it wasn't collected from the first place and then gone to a second hospital. When you think about the changes that could be made now in your nursing education for, like you said, you might see 80 slides about respiratory issues, but only these 4 slides about sexual assault examiner. Do you think that more content would have made you more interested in maybe going down that path to get the certification, to know what is an option? Because I'm sure that different things stand out to different people throughout their education. And that stood out to you. Why? And in what way do you think the change can help?
It stood out to me because, it was another part. I mean, you have to have good bedside manner, no matter what, to be a good nurse. And it takes a special person to be a nurse, but it also takes an even more special person to have the quality to be willing to be a sexual assault nurse examiner and to make that patient feel like they're not in the wrong. And that there's no grief, no blame for anything, that for any reason why they're there. So that stood out to me to find out a little bit more about it, because I hadn't heard of that before. And then in doing another project for another class for community health, I had chose that and was able to find out more of the statistics. Like there's tens of thousands of nurses, you know, and less than 300 of them are same sexual assault nurse examiner certified. And to me, that just like, it weighed really heavy on my heart because of all those patients that are turned away, all those patients that feel like, you know, my voice isn't going to be heard. And changing that curriculum, you know, I know that's up at the state boards. And as you said, you know, talking about it is the first step. It would probably, I know the, sorry.
It's okay.
I know the teachers, you know, the professors that at any college, they have, you know, their structure that they're supposed to go by, and they're supposed to just touch on things. But I feel like, you know, with more talking about it, maybe there might be more statistics brought in on it. And so, you know, maybe that will change someone's mind. Maybe they'll start talking about it more, and then it can go up through the Department of Education and whoever else it needs to go through, so that there can be more curriculum on this and how this affects people if they're not able to properly get seen. Yeah.
One of my friends says his mom always used to say, write a letter. Like if you're not happy about something, he always says that, write a letter. So we should start writing letters, I suppose, to the people who read these and make these decisions. Well, I appreciate your take on that, because, you know, when we went around the room and we talked about our goals and aspiration, you know, what we aspire to do, you were about to graduate, and this is what you mentioned. So it wasn't like, you know, a house on the hill. It wasn't anything glamorous. It was, oh, what I'd like to do is work hard to try to change this. So thank you for having that conversation with me today. Yeah. We're going to completely shift gears and go into mommy mode for you, because you blew my mind when you talked about your meal prep at your house. So I'm even going to show pictures to people as we talk about it. So not a smooth transition from sexual assault discussion to talking about crock pots and food prep, but we're going to do it anyway. So we'll come back in just a moment. We're talking with Ashley Cline. I am always impressed by people who food prep. I've tried it a few times. Sometimes I'm successful. Sometimes I give up after like 2 weeks of doing it. But Ashley, your food prep is next level. I think you should come up with an online course that is all about these food prep methods. So we just have a couple minutes. Crock pot wonders, and you do food prep for a day that lasts 90 days, 60 days.
Yeah, my crock pot meals after one full day of prepping has lasted 30, 60 days, sometimes a little bit longer, depending on what I pull.
Well, one of the things you said that so tell us 3 things, like give us a couple of tips of what people need to do to just be ready for it.
Yeah, so I always make sure that I have my list of ingredients that I need from the store. that correspond with the recipes. I make sure I have all my recipes printed out, all my supplies, including on my Ziploc baggies, I'll write down anything that's needed the day of to add in and what it pairs best with, along with the instructions of how long they cook, or, if I need to shred it, I need to cube it, I need to, whatever I need to do with it.
So like if you're going to add, if this recipe needs chicken broth, you'll write that on the bag. So you won't even pull it out if you don't have chicken broth, right? You'll go to a different bag. And the picture of these bags, how much food is this?
So are you talking about like in total what I make in a day?
Yeah, the picture that I'm going to show right now, while people are looking that you showed me, how much, that's like, how many months worth is that? Weeks?
So that's a couple months worth right there out of my freezer. And that also includes, like, I have pie fillings in there too, and like breakfast burritos and breakfast sandwiches. And
that's what you said. You also make sandwiches ahead, and breakfast burritos make sense. And then with the sandwiches, you just don't put the condiments in yet.
Yep. I don't put the condiments on. And I wrap them in wax paper, and then I wrap them in foil, and then I stick them all back in the bread bag to be stored. And I write on them what they are. I've tested that. I know chicken salad does not work. It makes everything soggy. And there is one other, I can't remember.
Tuna
right
salad,
now.
I think you said.
Yeah, tuna salad, that doesn't work either. So, egg salad. The egg whites become too rubbery.
See, so that's just, you learn as you go. But so get the recipes ready. You can find all kinds of crock pot recipes anywhere. It's a lot of dumping, you said, just like 3, 4, 5, 6 ingredients all dumped together, and then they make a meal for later. So you might have to boil pasta for something or something like that, or make some rice or whatever you're going to add to it. But otherwise it's all together.
Yeah.
How did you even get started doing this? I mean, obviously you're probably busy in school and you have a youngster and you're trying to keep your family fed. Was that your motivation?
Yeah. So with our busy schedule and little ones in sports, and then my husband's older ones in sports too, we were always go, 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 go. And I wanted something that could be done, and I wasn't feeding the family at 9:00 at night. So I started looking into what could I do to prepare meals prior, and crock potting became it. Then
Is it
I also
always crock potting, or do you sometimes use other methods? You just maybe cook 2 lasagnas instead of 1 sometimes, or is that?
Yeah, so, well, I found that I can also prep pasta meals and lasagnas, and so I'll prep those and freeze them as well, just like the crock pot meals and the sandwiches. And we'll do pastas, and I'll do the same notes saying, pair with watermelon, or, you need this the day of, just the little notes to remind me. So then I would know, okay, we either have it or it'll take 2 minutes to run into the store and grab this. So.
Well, I think when I think about the organization it takes, I had, my son was in baseball, and there was a cookbook out called, I don't know, baseball meals or something. It was just that quick thing to get going. So, but the crock pot thing I like, because at least you're putting fresh food together and you get to choose how healthy it is. You're using fresh ingredients. So good for you. And do your family have any favorites? What's their favorite?
Any type of pasta. And as long as I don't make anything too spicy, then everyone's okay with it.
The Italian sausage soup.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Italian sausage soup is where it's at. So
he just came to tell you that.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. Let me know if you ever want help building an online course, because I'm in the process of building one of my own that has nothing to do with food prep. But anyway, I think it's a good idea. It's a way to duplicate yourself and help people who, like me, who have no idea where to start. Thank you so much for being here. Let's stay in touch. I want to know what changes might be made, what letters you write, who you can get on board to help make these changes in the nurse examiner role, and also if you end up doing that online course for food prep.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.